Okay, today we're going to be talking about Chapter 11, Lesson 4. This is called Translations and Reflections. So the first thing we have to talk about is what's a transformation? A transformation, especially when it comes to geometry, is moving a shape, which is called the preimage, to a different location on a coordinate plane. And this new location, this is called the image. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. We're going to talk about two of them today. We're going to talk about translation first. This is shifting a shape up, down, left, or right. You can have a combination of the up-down, this is along the y-axis, and left and right, this is along the x-axis. So you can have one y, one x, you can have simply a y, simply an x, but you can have a combination of those. So if we were to look at the shape on the right here of the triangle in quadrant 1, and if we wanted to translate it, we can say that if we wanted to go to the left and then down, every single point along this triangle would move left the same number of places and down the same number of places. So one way that this can be done, and I'll show this in the next example as well, is by drawing the lines to show how far to the left and down this shape would be translated. Again, every single one of them moves the same number of places. So the blue one would be the image. This is called the image. And again, the black one here, this is called the preimage. And we'll talk about how to label them in the next example as well. The next kind of transformation that we're going to be talking about is called a reflection. A reflection is mirroring or flipping an image, a preimage. We can do it along the x-axis or the y-axis. And we'll talk about what those look like as well. So for example, if I wanted to mirror it across the x-axis, the x-axis is the horizontal one here, which means that every single point is exactly the same distance from this reflection line, just on the opposite side of it. So because these 2 points are only half a space above, they'll also be only a half a space below. This one was 1.5 spaces above, so it's 1.5 spaces below. So it'll look like that. Now, if I wanted to go about the y-axis, that's the vertical one here, same exact process. Each one of the points will be the exact same distance away from the y-axis, just on the opposite side. So again, this is a half a point away, so I'll move it the same distance on the other side. Notice how these triangles are the exact same size. Same thing with the translation. They are not changing size. Translations, we do not change the size, but we do change where it is and what direction it's facing. Reflection, we don't change the size, but we can change its direction that it's facing. So let's look at an example here. Example 1, this is going to be dealing with a translation. So it says, suppose triangle ABC, which is the pre-image on the coordinate plane right here, is translated 4 units to the right and then 5 units down. Now, along this translation here, 4 units to the right, this is going to be in the x direction, because right and left is along the horizontal, and the x-axis is the horizontal axis. 5 units down, this is in the y direction. Again, because up and down is vertical, and the y-axis is the vertical axis. So find the coordinates of the vertices of the image. Now, something we have here, it's called translation notation. Translation notation tells us how to move from the pre-image coordinates to the image coordinates. And what we do is we write down simply x and y, because those are the 2 coordinates of any ordered pair. X is first, then y is second. And then we look at the translation. So 4 units to the right, that's in the x direction, which means that I'm going to be affecting my x value by 4. And if I'm moving to the right, it would be an addition. Left, it's a subtraction. So I'm moving 4 units to the right, so I'm going to be adding 4 to my x value. Because as I move to the right along the x-axis, I get more and more positive. With the y direction here, it says 5 units down. So right was positive, so is up. Left was negative, so is down. So because I'm going down 5 units, I'm going to take my y value and subtract 5. Because as I go down, my y values are getting less. So let's look at A, B, and C. A is at negative 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 3, 4. If I add 4 to the x value, which was negative 3 plus 4 is 1. The x or the y value was 4, so 4 minus 5 becomes negative 1. So this is where A prime is going to be. And this notation here means A prime. Every single time we do a translation, we add a prime symbol. So one translation, one transformation, we do a prime symbol. If we were to have to do a second transformation, for example, if we were to have to do a reflection after this translation, we would call it A with 2 prime symbols, and that means A double prime. This means that a second transformation has happened. Next, B is still at negative 3, but now it's at 1. So negative 3, 1. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1 again. And 1 minus 5 is negative 4. So B prime is going to be here. And then this should be C prime, but with a hole punch it took it out. But C prime is at negative 1, 1. If I do negative 1 plus 4, I get 3. And 1 minus 5, I get negative 4. So C prime is right here. And this here is the image of this triangle. Notice how they are the same size, just in a different location. All right, so that is translations. Now let's talk about reflections. So if I'm looking at a reflection over the y-axis, if this is my coordinate plane here, the black square, that's the pre-image. And then the red square is the image. So I'm going to go from here to here. Now I know that there aren't any tick marks on this coordinate plane, so we don't know exact ordered pairs. But if we look at any ordered pair on this square, it would be x, then y. Whatever the x coordinate is, followed by whatever the y coordinate is. After the reflection, so after the reflection. This becomes, notice how the y values didn't change. It's exactly in the same location vertically. So the y values stay the same. But the x values, they're on the opposite side. This is the positive x section. This is the negative x section, which means that all of these x values became its opposite by going on the opposite side. So if I'm reflecting over the y-axis, my x values become their opposite, and the y values stay the same. Same thing if we reflect it over the x-axis. So again, here's my coordinate plane. This is my pre-image. And then this square is the image. So again, same thing. Anything on the pre-image square would be denoted by x then y. And again, after the reflection, the x values didn't change. They're in the same positive section, so x stays the same, but y becomes its opposite. So let's utilize that information to help us with example 2. It says example 2, the vertices of MNOP are M, negative 8, 6. So that would be right here. This is M. N is at 5, 9. So here's 5 and 9. Here's N. O is at 2, 1. Here's O. And P is at negative 10, 3. Here's P. So if I were to connect all these dots, I would have a quadrilateral excuse me. That looks like that. It then says to graph the figure and its image after reflection over the y-axis. So we're going to be looking at it over the y-axis. So this is going to be our reflection line. So M was at negative 8, 6. It's now going to be at positive 8, 6. And again, we denote it as M prime because we did one transformation. N was at 5, 9, so now it's at negative 5, 9. So this is at N prime. O prime was at 2, 1, so now we're at negative 2, 1. That's O prime. And then P prime was at negative 10, 3. It's now at 10, 3, and that's P prime. So if I connect the dots as so, that is my new reflected image. So let's go ahead and start writing down the ordered pairs. So M prime, N prime, O prime, and P prime. M prime is at 8, 6. N prime is at negative 5, 9. O prime is at negative 2, 1. And P prime is at 10, 3. Notice how I reflected it over the y-axis. So all of the y values stayed the same. And it was the x values that became its opposite. So negative 8 became positive 8. 5 became negative 5. 2 became negative 2. And negative 10 became positive 10. Keep that in mind. And this is the end of lesson 4. If you have any questions, please let me know.